Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Falato. It's been a while since we came to you and recorded. I've been away. I had a nice vacation, probably my longest and best vacation, Nick, of not only my lifetime, but probably the last 10 years. It's funny, Nick. I went to Hawaii to celebrate my brother and his wife, Kara, getting married. I officiated the marriage. That was
Did it
pretty
go well?
fun. It went really well. So to be fair, I wrote it down in a notebook and I read from the notebook. I wasn't going to memorize that whole thing. And they read their vows as well from a book. So it's just too hard to memorize stuff and you're going to miss stuff. But I did get in a couple jokes that people loved, which was key. Two good jokes, but it was mostly heartfelt. There will be, because obviously my mom is my mom, you know her a little bit, she's not so this wedding, it was just my family and her family. At the wedding, it was just 9 total people. My mom's not going to accept that. So we're having a celebration for them in July where there will be 125 people. So that's when the best man speech will come into play with all the jokes, just, roasting Matt Schneier and all of that. I'm sure he's going to listen today and hear that and be excited for that. But it was amazing, dude. They got married on the 3rd hole at Mauna Kea golf course, which is a par 3 over water, over the ocean. Really the most beautiful setting I can even imagine for a wedding. I also played that course, Nick. It was by far the hardest course I've ever played in my life. But it's funny because we had 7 days there and we went in, Nick, me, my parents, my brother, with this expectation, all right, we're going to explore the islands. We're going to hike and stuff. And ultimately we ended up just playing golf, tennis, and beach every single day and then going out to dinner. It's just every day because we just love that as a family. We love being active and golfing and beach and all that. So it was a great time, man. And the good news for me is I finally managed to get tanner than you on this trip. Yes, I am tanner than you. Yes,
you're not tanner than me.
A lighting trick.
It is such a
reality of the situation at this point.
Absolutely not, dude. I walk outside in the sun and I'm automatically just insanely tan. You do look good, though, man. You do look good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a nice base. It's the 25% of Greek or whatever it is that you have.
Yes, 25% Greek. Thank God. That 23andMe was a life-saving, revelation. I got 75. I thought I was 99 to 100% Ashkenazi, and luckily, somewhere in there is 25% Greek. So that was a good revelation for me, at least.
That's good, man. Yeah, we're doing well over here. Just staying busy
Hell yeah.
in the slow part of the year. That is early June. Talking about OTAs. We could have done a podcast on OTAs, and Dan and but Dan and I were looking at it. We're like, we could briefly mention some things, but there really is not a lot of substance there. And as a lot of listeners of this podcast know, a lot of the content surrounding the OTAs is people reaching for things and trying to talk about stuff that might be absolutely irrelevant in a month. And Dan and I chose not to do that and do something a little bit more fun.
Yeah, we did something a lot more fun, I think, than just saying, Jackson Dart got some reps, and Jackson Dart he got a first team rep and threw a touchdown for Jalen Hyatt. I saw that video. I was like, this is everyone's like, look at this play. I was like, it's kind of just like a 15-yard throw into the back of the end zone against, padless practices and no hitting. But great. I'm happy you got a first-team rep, but we're not going to do that. Today, what we're going to do is
I'll say one funny thing from OTAs is Tommy DeVito throwing 4 touchdowns on 4 total throws.
I saw that.
One of the undrafted guys, I don't remember who, dropped one of the 4th touchdown. That is a big D moment from Tommy
DeVito heating up, baby. DeVito is heating up, trying to, win that third quarterback role. It's unbelievable how many quarterbacks the Giants have from last year where it felt like they had none. But we'll talk about all that throughout the year. What we're going to do on this pod today is something we've done over the past at least 1 year, but probably 2 years. And it's evaluating Nick Falato. Every year, Nick Falato does a ranking of the NFC East offenses position by position. So he has a point system, which I'll allow you to go over in a second. And, it's very, very scientific. You really grind the data. I think you actually had to get a degree to do this, to actually create these rankings of the NFC East position by position. But all jokes aside, what I like about these rankings, Nick, is that it gives us some kind of frame of reference for, are the Giants closing the talent gap in the NFC East? And where do the Giants fit in a lot of these position groups? But apparently, Nick, not everybody likes your scientific ranking process. We have a Cowboys blogger. I'll give him a shout out here. Josh Sanchez, who called your rankings delusional. delusional rankings. I will make you defend, Nick, your delusional, quote unquote, rankings of the NFC East position groups. And I think his main beef, Nick, had to do with how you rank the quarterback position. So before we get into that, why don't you go over what these rankings are and really your scientific method that you really developed over a lot of time?
It's quite thorough. I spent a lot of time in the labs coming up with this, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And it really is 4 teams in the NFC East. The position group that is the best in the mind of Nick Falato with all things, the totality of everything that goes into evaluating position group.
Yeah, you really have, it's like the Charlie Day meme.
I know. The first best gets 4 points. The second best gets 3. The third best gets 2. And then the worst in the division gets 1.
And then what is it? A total points at the end or an average?
It's a total points at the end for the offense and the defense, and then we add them all up, right?
All right. It's a tough process, but we're going to get there.
Well, we're going to get there. And you know, I don't think it's too elaborate for our listeners. We got a very high IQ listening group, but it is pretty out there, I'll tell you. Now,
yeah, there'll be listen, if you can't figure it out just from this pod, go ahead and you can Google how do I decipher Nick Falato's rankings, and other people have like taken to Reddit and stuff like that to kind of break it down.
It's a very simple, just fun little exercise just to kind of break down, generally speaking, how position groups look throughout the NFC East. It's not scientific. The difference between a 1 and a 2 is an entire point, but those position groups could be very similar, and it's hard to really discern what those actual differences are. So you try to find something. It's a fun little exercise that people read way too much into. It's kind of stupid, right? Anyways, so a Cowboys beat reporter or a Cowboys blogger or whatever got content off this content by saying that Dak Prescott
so dry and dead this time of year. It's like we're doing reblogs off of blogs.
Reblogs off of blogs, off of delusional NFC East takes. And I get it. But if the guy read, and again, he's just trying to get his content out there. No hate. I'm not going to hate the game, right?
Good for him.
But if you read the Cowboys section, I'm very clear that Dak Prescott is by far and away much better than any quarterback the New York Giants have. I put the Giants 3rd in the division, the Commanders 1st for a quarterback, and then Jalen Hurts and the Eagles 2nd, Giants 3rd, and then the Cowboys 4th, because Dak Prescott's making $50 million plus this season, is coming off of a hamstring injury, has been injured, I wouldn't say a lot recently, but has been injured a decent amount. And the Giants, they do have a rookie quarterback, but they possibly have their future quarterback on their roster that they spent a 1st-round pick on in Jackson Dart on their roster with Russell Wilson, with Jameis Winston. And those are a lot of options. So I said, you know, contracts involved, I'm going to put the Cowboys last here. And this Cowboys blogger did not like that at all and called them delusional. But again, Dak Prescott's better than anybody the Giants have. I'm a huge Dak Prescott fan. The fact that I got painted into this corner, not really because I did put them last, but still the fact that victim Nick Falato got painted into this corner and he's the Dak Prescott hater. I'm like, no, I always stick up for Dak. I just think the Cowboys situation at quarterback sucks and there's so much money tied up into it. Whereas the Giants can get rid of Russell Wilson next year and they have Jackson Dart on the roster. I'm not even fully sold on the New York Giants in their quarterback room. It really all comes down to Jackson Dart, but having that option makes me feel a little bit of a warm and fuzzy. So Dan, going over the New York Giants quarterback and the NFC East quarterback situation, what were your takes on my takes and what was your takes on this Cowboys blogger's takes?
Yeah, so we'll break down each position group. Nick will give his rankings and I'll give mine. I'll say this, as always, there's nuance to this conversation that I think is sometimes lost. Clearly in this example, it was because, you know, and he brings up this point. And it's a very good point. Dak Prescott's beaten the Giants like all 13 times he's ever played him. And then he lost one, though. I saw that. I think it was the last 13 times because he lost that game where Janoris Jenkins locked down Dez.
I don't know if Dak Prescott
definitely lost that game.
I think he lost 2 games against the Giants, and they were both in like 2016. Dak Prescott owns the New York Giants, and I absolutely hate that fact. Yes,
he definitely lost that Janoris Jenkins Dez game that I remember in 2016. I don't remember if he lost both that year. It might have just been the one game in Giant Stadium, in MetLife Stadium, but that was his point. But I think that point kind of misses what you're arguing here. Your case is not like who's better right now, Dak Prescott or the Giants quarterback room. It's what situation is better. To that point, Nick, I still think it's a little bit egregious. I won't call it delusional, but a little bit egregious to rank the Giants ahead of the Cowboys there, because I'm with you. I really respect and like Dak's game. We watch a lot of tape of Dak Prescott. We've watched a lot of tape of Hurts. I borderline want to put Dak over Hurts. I won't do it because then I'll get even more flack than you just got for your ranking. And I swear to God, because Heath destroyed me on the CBS pod a few months ago for not putting Jalen Hurts in the elite tier of quarterbacks. And I stand by it. I don't believe he's a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow type. I just don't, and I just never will from the tape that I watch. But I borderline kind of think that Dak does more as a quarterback than Hurts in a lot of ways, and because of his processing, he just sees the field, I think, better than any quarterback in this division, including Jaden Daniels. He just doesn't have the natural athletic talent that Daniels has, or the arm talent that Daniels has, or the arm talent or the athleticism that Hurts has. Or in some ways, I kind of feel like his arm talent is pretty comparable to Hurts too. I don't think Dak has great arm talent, but his mind works better as a quarterback from a processing standpoint than anyone in this division. And when it comes to the Giants situation, yes, they don't have a lot of money tied up to the future of this position, but they do have a decent amount tied up now because Russell Wilson is likely to take up a decent amount of cap space. Not as much as Dak, obviously. It'll be about half total between Russ.
Of course, the Cowboys are not going to cut Dak Prescott, but guess what the dead cap would be on that contract?
Oh, the way that they structure contracts with their front loading, I can't even imagine. Is it
it's
over
70? Dude, it's $180 million, dude.
Wow.
Yes.
What a weird structuring.
The primary reason why I put this here is because Dak Prescott, his contract's so inflated at this point. And I love Dak Prescott. And you know what? He could be playing through that contract. It's fine, but like there's no maneuverability for the Dallas Cowboys. And that goes with a lot of the other positions as well and how they structure contracts with some of those other positions. But this contract that Dak Prescott has, that's hefty. That's hefty. And I respect Dak Prescott a lot, but I think I would rather be in the position of the New York Giants right now, where I have this rookie who's going to be paid possibly for 5 seasons under contract. I don't know how good he is, but I think I would take that wild card with the 2 veterans at the moment over an older quarterback who has had injuries recently, who is getting paid over $50 million a year. I don't think that's egregious, nor do I think that is delusional. I think that is just a different way of thinking about the quarterback position and how I guess I value Dak Prescott. And I know he's a lot better than what the New York Giants have right now, but do I think he is worth that in the current Cowboys situation? I'm not 100% sold on that.
You made a good case. I want to take back the word egregious. I never would use the word delusional. Egregious was a bad word to use. I think egregious is not the right word. I think I find the ranking to just be not the same as mine, I guess, because it's not egregious at all. You made a great case there. And I think every Giants fan listening to this, to be honest, Nick, probably agrees with you. And it's very easy. No, I think so. Because it's very easy to take that stance because we don't know anything about Jackson Dart. Yes. And that's really why we can take that stance. We know a lot about Russ. And to be honest, like, I don't think Russ has any chance of being better than Dak individually this year. And I don't think Jameis has any chance of being better than Dak individually this year. But the fact of the matter is, from a long-term standpoint, Dak Prescott has never stepped up in the playoffs and really took his team to the next level. He's not someone who we view as you can really win Super Bowls while paying him $50 million against the cap. We kind of view it as like a Cousins type situation, which for years on this podcast, we said we never want to get the Giants into. Now we've kind of backed down from that because we've been such bad quarterback hell.
I was never big on that.
Okay, I was very big on that. And I've kind of backed down for that because I've now learned and lived through what quarterback hell is like with Daniel Jones. So I just kind of know a different mindset than I had before DJ when I had Eli. So I've totally changed my opinion of that. Now I'm like, all right, I take a Dak and Kirk at this point because at least like maybe you can get lucky and all the pieces fit together, like a Brock Purdy situation. But the point being, as far as the last piece goes, because we've already unraveled the Russ and Jameis side of this, from Dart's standpoint, we do have to remember, because it's easy to just look at this pie in the sky and be like, well, Dart's young, he's under contract, he's cheap, he's got arm talent, he's got some talent, Dable loves him. But we do have to kind of consider where we're at pre-draft with Dart, and both of us were very skeptical of Jackson Dart as an NFL prospect. Yeah. And I don't know if we can just kind of erase that. And I know it's going to be hard not to, because I think at this point, and I do strongly believe this, if we take any kind of negative stance against Dart, we will be viewed as haters by Giants fans, because that's where this thing turns. It's how it always turns, dude. And how it turns every time you draft a player, the fans are now automatically bought in and all in. And I get it, because there's so much hype around Dart.
This is an interesting conversation, and I'm glad we're having it on this podcast, because I don't know if fans will be, I mean, there will be a large contingent of Giant fans who will go against us if we start speaking out against Jackson Dart. But I think evaluating Daniel Jones and Jackson Dart, it's from completely different perspectives, because Daniel Jones always had the team can never surround him with anything. And he always had that. And that prolonged New York Giant fans' belief in him. That's not the case that Jackson Dart is walking into. Jackson Dart is walking into a more stable situation than Daniel Jones did. And that's not to say Daniel Jones and those excuses were necessary. I mean, those excuses were valid, but Daniel Jones was also not a good quarterback. And those two things can coexist. Whereas Jackson Dart is walking into a situation where the Giants actually have a stable offensive line. They have some offensive weapons, good quality offensive weapons, and they have a defense. So I think if Jackson Dart is falling on his face like Daniel Jones did, it won't be directed necessarily at the offensive line or the receivers. It will be directed at Brian Daboll and Jackson Dart.
Good point. And for years, we tried, like the whole point of this podcast and why we watch the tape and try to evaluate this team from a different perspective than a lot of other podcasts do or shows do, is because we try to explain to people, like, our goal is not to be like, just because Daniel Jones has this bad O-line and this situation and this and that, he cannot be evaluated. We were like, we can evaluate this quarterback by watching his dropbacks, by watching his progressions, by watching where his eyes go, by watching the ball placement, the velocity, things of that nature. Does he manage a pocket? Does he navigate a pocket well? And we don't need to have all that stuff around him. But the same should be true for Dart. I don't want to look at the Dart situation like he has all this, so why aren't we getting the the expected stats? Because it could take time for him to develop. And for all we know, the Giants could view this Dart situation as a long-term plan. They could view him as, look, he's 21 years old. He was in a basically, we know nothing about you offense at Ole Miss. We're just going to have to develop him from scratch like a ball of clay. And that's not going to show up year one or year two, even if we have neighbors and all this better situation around him. And that's something we have to consider. But we also are going to do what we did for Jones. And I know me and you are going to do that. We're going to view him. We're going to grade these guys harshly, these quarterbacks. If we think that they're not performing well in those things I just mentioned about that Daniel Jones always struggled with on tape, we're going to say it. And that's just the bottom line. And we're not going to be nice about it. We're not going to be like, we're fans. We have to give them every benefit of the doubt, because we never did that with Jones and we can't do that with Dart. Yeah. But I do want to just say, like, as far as our quarterback situation goes, right now it feels great because Dart is under contract cheap, and we get all that hype. We get the meeting with him at the 30 visit where he looked good. We get Daboll talking him up. We get these highlights from OTAs. But quarterback is an insanely hard position to play, and he may go out there and just have no processing ability and be unstartable and unusable. Potentially, that happened to Will Levis. That happens to some of these like back end first round type prospects at quarterback. So I just want to be clear about that I am at least a little reserved right now in my expectation.
That's completely fine. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. The great year of 2025 is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's TIMELINE. And I mean, I'm a little reserved as well. For me, there is a certain amount of, I'm trying to put a certain amount of trust and belief into Brian Daboll to get the most out of Jackson Dart. But even with that, and the track record that Daboll does have with Josh Allen, which is a huge positive for Daboll, I'm still a little reserved too, because he's coming from the Mickey Mouse type of offense. Right. And, I mean, there's a lot to appreciate about Dart's tape. We've talked a lot about it. There's still some reservations there. So we got to wait and see. With all that said, I'm comfortable with going with the direction that I went. Commanders 1, Eagles 2, Giants 3, Cowboys. Fair. But again, Dak Prescott better than anybody the Giants have. I think you can make an argument that Dak Prescott is the second. I think it's a good argument that Dak Prescott's the second best quarterback in the division. It's just there's a massive contract that's also tied to Dak Prescott, and he's getting a little bit old, and he's not he's not in necessarily an offense right now that is conducive. I tried not to analyze that when I was going through this piece, but Brian Schottenheimer's your quarterback, like or your head coach. Like, there's a lot there, So overall, like I love Dak Prescott's game. I just don't love the situation that is attached to Dak Prescott.
I think that's fair. And I think, again, it's important to note that he really has never elevated that team to a Super Bowl level. And it's something to consider. His playoff track record is not great. I just do kind of feel like if he was in that Eagles situation, he might be better than Hurts. It's just hard for me to not think about that. But Hurts does offer a lot as a runner that Dak would not offer. And I got to find a way to give Hurts more respect for his game.
I think so.
I really do. I'm going to come around to it. Now, I don't think I'd give him not enough respect. I'm saying he's not an elite tier. And I just don't know if I'll ever get there. But I got to be more like he's just above that, just below that elite tier level.
All right. Since we're having this good conversation, who's in the elite tier? Patrick Mahomes.
I can't say it because there's going to be guys that the people really strongly disagree with me on.
Oh, well, who cares, man? Take your stand.
Okay,
so on podcast. These are listeners.
Let me hear yours.
All right.
Anyone.
Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
And
Burrow for me.
Joe Burrow, I would put in there as well. And it might stop there.
So most people would stop there, and I think that's perfectly fine. I know Jaden's butting on it, but we can't put him there yet.
If Jaden has another season, if he has 80% of the season he just had, he would be in that tier. That's a
controversial one for me that no one's going to agree with. That I think at this point I want to drop him to the next tier, though I kind of just feel like on tape he's so much better than Hurts. So if I'm putting him in that Hurts next tier, it just doesn't add up to me. It's Justin Herbert, because Justin Herbert's tape is phenomenal. I just went back and watched the first 11 games of him last year. It's just unbelievable tape. It's not just the arm talent; it's the processing. Like he hits backside of plays more than any quarterback that I watched on tape besides maybe Burrow. And that is hard to do, to understand where the backside, what's going on the backside of a play, and to time that up. But for some reason with Herbert, it doesn't click, and he hasn't won a lot of games in the playoffs. He was saddled with a really bad coach for a while, really bad roster management, but that's no excuse now. Harbaugh's there. They've kind of righted the roster, and he didn't do well last year in the playoffs. So I think that for me to kind of get to that point with him, he has to make a playoff run this year, or else I have to drop him down.
I think Herbert's in that same tier with like Stafford, right? It's just Stafford's older now. He's in that type of conversation. Whereas I think the previous 4 quarterbacks that we listed, those guys have elevated and made deep playoff runs. I want to see a little bit more from Lamar when it comes to that, but Lamar just does so much that I have to put him in that elite tier.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's fair. And I think it's really, even if we just take out Herbert for sure from this conversation, the 4 that you mentioned, it's just really hard for me to get there with Hurts being on the level of those 4 individually.
And there's a drop off too. Yes. I think there's a significant drop off those 4. I can entertain Herbert, need to see a little bit more from him. Stafford's getting a little long in the tooth and has some stud games, but he's such a good just quarterback and so fun to watch. And then you have
Stroud, Jaden, those types.
But they're all like the young guys, like Stroud. I think now that he has 2 years under his belt, I would start. But I'm not considering any of those rookies yet. And then it's Hurts. Hurts is that next guy where you're like, oh well, yeah. Why
Goff,
are we Goff is he's a good quarterback. Jared Goff's a fine quarterback.
Great situation, but good quarterback. And this really speaks to Nick, why I think a lot of people I've had this conversation with a friend, and we don't need to get too far into this, but we've really lost the middle class of quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think it's made it a worse product, unfortunately. During when we were growing up, there was the Eli Rivers, Matt Ryan class, and there was others, if I thought about it, that were not first tier. They were second tier. There was Brady Payton in that first tier that we were talking about. And that second tier with Eli Rivers, Brian, all those guys was phenomenal football. You were getting great ball, great quarterback play out of them. 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. You don't have that anymore. It's just such a hard position to play. It's getting hard. I feel it's getting harder and harder to play quarterback at the NFL level for some reason.
I think there were a lot of quarterbacks who fit into that, but who are now getting older. I think Baker Mayfield fits into that well, where it's I'm comfortable with him being my starting quarterback. Is he a superstar? Probably not, but he's a good above average starting quarterback in the National Football League who I appreciate. But guys like Kirk Cousins were in that for a while, and now they fell off. Matt Ryan was in that for a while, gone. Like you said, Phillip Rivers, gone. So a lot of those quarterbacks have graduated, and it's who is that next group of quarterbacks who came into the league around 2017, 2018, 29, who are taking that mantle, who are assuming those positions. And they're really, I don't think there are a lot. Guys like Mitchell Trubisky out of the league at this point, or maybe he's a backup somewhere. There's a lot of quarterbacks like Josh Rosen's of the world and players like that who came in highly regarded, and they just faded away. So where is that middle class of quarterback? The NFL needs to reconstitute them somehow.
And that's kind of where I'm hoping Dart gets to. I don't know if I ever really envision him being in the elite tier that we mentioned earlier, to be quite frank. I just don't know if he has the physical tools for it personally. But if he gets to that second tier, that Hurts range, that Herbert range, that's a tier you can win with. Hurts just proved that to me. I mean, you have to do really good with your roster management as a GM, but that's something, because you're not going to find these Burrows and Allens in every class, like you're never going to find them really. Like you have to get really lucky to get one on your roster. So you have to find other ways to win.
Like guys like Tua, he would be in the middle class tier, right? But the thing about Tua that's interesting, and this is where this conversation is fun. It's like if Tua's not with Mike McDaniel,
I know
is he a starting
even playing?
Like he's perfect for that system. That system is tailored for Tua Tagovailoa's skill set, man. Just quick timing, quick release, get the football out of your hands, in breaking routes. Everything is based on timing and accuracy, and not necessarily on pushing it outside the number. That's not what Tua Tagovailoa does well. But if you put him with another coordinator who tries to fit his system onto Tua, does Tua work? I'm not sure.
Good point. It's kind of like and this is a great example, a quarterback that I've hated on. We got to get off this and get back to the rankings after this, but it's fun though. So a quarterback I've hated on his whole career, Jimmy G, who actually looked good with Shanahan, went to Vegas, looked horrifically bad. You know the clip. Have you seen the clip of Devontae Adams being like, this guy's going to get me killed? That's how bad he is. And then went back to McVay, a similar system to Shanahan last year, and actually looked good in his spot start out of nowhere. Like it was like, oh, Jimmy's done. I can't believe they're letting him play. No, he actually looked good again, because like that system, that type of style of offense, those in-breaking routes can fit him, because he just needs to kind of hit his back foot and throw the football on an in-breaker, which I guess is kind of quarterbacking. I feel like it's kind of coaching, and like leading to quarterbacking. It's kind of weird to me. But there are different levels of it, right? Like Purdy does it the best, I think, of anyone who's played in those systems, obviously not Stafford included, but like of anyone who's really played without that kind of next level arm talent.
Matt Schaub, let's go, baby.
Oh yeah, Matt Schaub really ran that system well without having that much arm talent. So it's very interesting. Quarterback is always going to lead to a massive discussion.
I would say Matt Ryan probably ran the system at its best, though.
Ooh, over Staff.
Oh,
yeah. No,
you were saying over you were saying over Purdy, not Staff. Yeah.
I was just saying like all Shanny tree.
Gotcha. No, Stafford,
Shanny tree.
Stafford and Ryan. I mean, I would go Stafford, but
same.
Matt Ryan was an elite quarterback in his. Well, not elite from the.
He
was in that tier that we were just talking about, like the Eli Manning tier.
And that year he won the MVP. He ran that system probably better than anyone's ran the Shanahan system. Actually, definitely better.
And he had Julio too. Oh,
he did have Julio.
What a team! 28.
He did have Julio.
What a 28-3 letdown, dude. That's crazy. Did you see the Falcons? Oh my gosh, they posted a picture at OTAs, and it was number 28 and number 3 standing next to each other, just like, hey, what's up? And they posted it. That. Yeah, I know. And then right away they took it down. And I was like,
what a loser post. I'm sure their fans destroyed them for that, rightfully so.
I know, but this is probably some poor intern or something like that. Like, I don't know. It could have been like,
but that was a bad move. You only get one shot. You can't be doing stuff like that. All right, let's get to your next position group, because we've talked a lot about quarterbacks. Out goes the position we love to talk about. Running back. Where do you rank the NFC East at running back?
Yeah, this one was tough. Again, these points, they're very valuable, and some of these running back rooms are it's hard to discern which one is better than the other. But the Eagles, they're well represented in these rankings, unfortunately. And people who listen to this podcast know that there's a level of disdain that I have for the Philadelphia Eagles, but a lot of respect as well, because it's just objectively true. Howie Roseman has just done an excellent job managing that roster and constructing that team. So the Eagles got 4 points, mostly due to Saquon Barkley, although they lost Kenny Gainwell. They brought in A.J. Dillon. Remember A.J. Dillon?
Yes.
That's like the biggest quad running back.
Somehow he'll be good on the Eagles, even though he looked horrible in the Packers the last 2 years.
I know, man. But yeah, Saquon gets the 4 points, and I have the Giants getting 3 points, the Commanders getting 2, and Dallas getting 1. Dallas's running back situation's a mess. Just Javonte Williams and Jaden Blue and Miles Sanders. It was tough, man. I went back and forth between the Giants and the Commanders because I can be swayed either way. Austin Eckler and you guys know Brian Robinson. I've been a massive fan of Brian Robinson since his time back at Alabama. But I do like the combination of Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Cam Scadaboo. And I think Devin Singletary is a better third option than anything Washington has, although they do have Ja'Cory Croskett-Merritt, who I remain high on, the kid who played one game last year for Arizona and then was rendered ineligible in college. They got him in like the 7th round. But I'm comfortable with these rankings and putting the Giants as a 3-point team here.
I think I would have it exactly the same, Nick. Eagles, Giants, Commanders, Cowboys. I will say this, just parsing through these rankings, Eagles for me get the boost that you talked about, but also I was a huge Will Shipley fan at Clemson, his
Yeah, you
tape,
were.
and I thought he looked very good in his spot start last year. I think that's another Harry Roseman find. And I will give you credit because I feel like no one really like gave it the time of the day to watch Brian Robinson tape when he was a draft prospect, but you did. Like you saw, and maybe they watched the tape. Like I watched some of him, but I guess we just didn't like see what you saw. But you saw it, and the Commander saw it too. And I feel like when I watch his tape at the NFL level, because I did a breakdown for Beyond the Box Score last year, he's really good on tape. And I don't know why they don't really use him, because I talked about this yesterday on Fantasy Football Today. He only played 43% of the snaps last year. Like, that's not a lot of snaps. It's less than you would expect for a player that's, to me, clearly their best running back. I guess Eckler's still decent. So I would think they have to be behind the Giants, because I really like Tyrone Tracy. Even if I want to give Brian Robinson a slight edge to Tracy, which I personally don't, the fact that Cam Scadaboo's now on this team over like an Eckler or a Jacor, Krosky Moret, to me gives the Giants an edge there. And then finally, the Cowboys. You said it best. I am a big Jaden Blue fan. I want to make that clear, because I think he's going to be a massive hit for the Cowboys. But he can get injured easily. He's still only like 190 something pounds. Didn't have a huge workload at Texas. Played behind some really good backs prior to last year, though. So we'll see what happens there. But I think you're spot on here. So let's move on to receiver.
Jeez, man, the receiver one was tough, man. I could have went in any direction. You could really talk me into any of the teams being number one, except for maybe Washington.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were going to say for two.
Well, yes. I think the Eagles are secured as the number one team, meaning they get 4 points here because of Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. But other than that, the other three teams, they could be jumbled and mixed and matched. But I wanted to put the Giants as 3. I had them as 3 initially just because I like their 11 personnel package. But the more I looked at Dallas, I had to put them as the 3-point team, meaning they are the second. I put Dallas over the New York Giants. What a homer move on my part. And it's really just because CeeDee Lamb, I think CeeDee Lamb, you give him the edge over Malik Neighbors. Pickens gets an edge over Darius Slayton. And I like Wan'Dale Robinson and the idea of Jalen Hyatt more than Jalen Tolbert and Jalen Brooks, but I have Lamb and Pickens over Neighbors and Slayton. So at that point, I just got to go with Dallas. So I gave Dallas that 3 points and Giants 2, and then Commanders came in last. I mean, I'm a big fan of Terry McLaurin. I respect Noah Brown. They have depth pieces like Luke McCaffrey and Michael Gallup and KJ Osborne, but I think they're clearly the last place team. But I do respect McLaurin. That's why I probably would thought about putting them, but I was like, no, because Malik Neighbors is better than Terry McLaurin. So and I like Darius Slayton more than anything else they have on that roster. But Deebo Samuel was like that interesting player where I'm like, yeah, he's a wide receiver. Is he falling off? I don't really know. So that's one reason why I had to entertain them a little bit more than I think I really wanted to.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think what makes this exercise fun, I should say, is that I almost, and it would be so hard to quantify, I wish it was kind of like a different kind of point system. So, for example, at quarterback, instead of 4, 3, 2, 1, 7 for Commanders, because having Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract is so much better situation than anyone else, and then a 3 for the next team or something like that. And on this situation, I think I would actually rank it Eagles 4. This is going to be I would have to rank it Eagles 4, Cowboys 3. I think I have those, and mostly just because they traded for Pickens, and I have so much respect for Pickens' game watching tape of Russell Wilson. He's really freaking good. But I would put Commanders 2 and the Giants 1. And the reason I put Commanders 2 over the Giants is, even though I kind of feel like the Giants by the end of this year might have the best receiver in the division, as crazy as that sounds, I don't
think that's crazy.
They prove to be better than both Lamb, who I would say is the second, the culprit, and then AJ Brown. But because I think Deebo is kind of going to be a perfect fit, unfortunately for us, for that scheme. Yeah. And I think that's really a huge edge. And then Luke McCaffrey, did you know that he had the 3rd best average separation score of all wide receivers last year? That ranked with Neighbors and Lamb and and Chase and all of the best elite receivers. And it's just kind of the ball didn't come his way. And when it did, he made a lot of plays. And Luke was a guy I loved his tape of. I thought that was one of the steals of the draft. I think this year he takes another step, and they're going to have Luke, Deebo, Terry out there. They just have a lot of depth. And I usually don't love to rate depth that much, but when it comes to receiver, a lot of players do actually play at that position. Usually most teams run 11 personnel. So I think I would go 4, 3, 2, 1, unfortunately with Giants with the 1.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I would put the Giants like solidly over Washington, but I did consider it because of the deep. And I think you're spot on with that too, man. Like they're going to like Deebo Samuel is going to resurrect his career if his career needs any resurrecting. I'm not sure, but I take Malik, Darius, and Wandale over,
and that's fair.
Over them. Yeah,
and that's fair. Let's go to tight end. That's an interesting one. I'm curious to get your rankings there.
This is another tough one. I didn't know exactly what the hell to do with this one, so I looked and I was like, Dallas Goedert is probably the best tight end in this division. Grant Calcaterra, he's a solid 12 personnel. You put him out there when he had to start instead of Dallas Goedert when Dallas Goedert was hurt. He did well. So Eagles got the 4 points, unfortunately, once again. Dallas Cowboys got 3 points over the Commanders and the Giants. And that's just because Jake Ferguson, we loved him at Wisconsin for his blocking. He's been an adept receiver since he's come into the NFL, and he's still, I would say, an average to slightly above average blocker. Nothing too crazy. He's not Chris Manhertz out there, but he's respectable. And then Schoonmaker, whenever he gets a shot, he goes out there and he's more of that receiving, moving around F type of tight end. They have Brevin Spanford, who is like a young Chris Manhertz as well. So I respected that room. And then I put the Commanders over the Giants, and I didn't love this, but it's really just because I believe in Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson hasn't really proven it quite yet. So it would require a lot of prognostication. And I looked at the Commanders, and I also believe in Ben Sinnott, who really didn't do anything last year. But they also have Zach Ertz, who is not exciting, but holy shit, did he come up with some massive plays for Washington last year? And he's smart and he knows how to create separation in the short to intermediate. And he's not a dominant blocker by any stretch of the imagination, but he can, hold up a little bit and then get off. He's more of a receiving option. But then they have their blocking guy in John Bates, who I was a big fan of coming out of Boise State back in the day, who just received a second contract, reasonable rate for what he offers that offense that Cliff Kingsbury wants to do. So I put the Commanders over the Giants, and then there's the Giants, and I hated ranking them last because you guys know I'm a massive Chris Manhertz fan. I remain high on Theo Johnson. I like Daniel Bellinger. I think the kid Fedone that they drafted has something to him. Same with the guy that they brought in who Dulcich, Greg Dulcich. So I like the Giants room, but I put them last because there's not like that proven starter there quite yet. Whereas I think Washington has that and Dallas has that, even though it's all really close. That's a 2-point swing because Giants could have got 3 points on this. That's a 2-point swing, and I buried my Giants fandom and put them 1 point here.
It's funny. It's funny because this position has not really been invested in much by anyone in the NFC. As I look across the board, 4, 3, 2, 1, like you could really go in a lot of different orders here. I would actually probably put the Cowboys first, because I think Ferguson is a better player than Goddard, and Goddard gets hurt too often.
Goddard does get hurt off. That's a great point.
Yeah. So, but even there, it's like Schoonmaker hasn't done a lot. This is what happens at tight end, I feel like, in the NFL. There's a lot of prospects me and you watch at the college level, and we're like, ooh, I like how he moves, or I like this prospect. And then tight end just becomes like an even harder position to project and to develop at than quarterback or tackle in the NFL. You just have so much responsibility. And there's a lot of busts that come out of this position. If you look back at draft classes, Schoonmaker might end up being a massive bust. Sinnott, a guy who we like, but I feel like we mostly like for his movement skills and like random blocks he made that look good on tape, but like not consistent, like not framed, like he doesn't have the frame to actually set the edge. Like, and then he sucked his rookie year. He couldn't even get on the field. And Theo is a guy I want to like, but like could be falling into the same category. So like, go ahead.
I don't think Theo falls into that. I think Theo at his floor is a big body who will be able to lose slow enough to be a blocker for you with a ton of upside as a receiver. I think some Giant fans may put a little bit more weight into that upside than maybe you and I do. Because I think you and I were both, when they drafted Theo Johnson, we were really excited. But we were like, look, he tested phenomenally, doesn't really play at that speed. He's still a faster tight end. He's still a tight end who's an asset as a mismatch type of guy because of the combination of his size and his athletic ability. But I'm not sitting here thinking that this is like Noah Fant or I'm trying to think of one of the most uber athletic tight ends out there,
Ebron or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, Eric Ebron. Holy shit. That is a name from the past. Good job. But I think, chill. I think there's there's certainly upside though still there that can be actualized, especially up the seam and just allowing the quarterback to throw it into a soft area where between those safeties. I think Theo has enough juice to climb the ladder and pluck it out of the air. Right. I just don't think he's necessarily the most athletic tight end to ever come out of the draft class, which like his testing, suggests.
Just to be clear, I didn't mean it like from that standpoint of like, because he's not a similar prospect to these guys.
Yeah.
I just meant like a lot of these tight end prospects end up busting. And I think that could easily happen with Theo. But I want to be clear about something. I'm actually definitely much higher. I weirdly this is more just feel thing from watching the tape. I think Theo's going to be a smashing hit for the Giants. I don't say this about all players. Like I'm not convinced on a lot of these guys people are convinced on.
Yeah.
But I like want to rank the Giants 4 here because I think Theo has more upside than anyone here, even including Sinnott, because like Sinnott has a different body type. Like I'm looking for, when I'm looking tight end, I want that Theo frames because like that, and then can get the Gronk upside where like you are a two-way player where you can disguise your run plays as pass plays and your pass plays as run plays because this guy can do both. And I still think he flashed that. The movement skills in his last game before he got hurt really stood out to me. I thought that was his best game by far in film. But even going back like a few games before that big seam touchdown he caught from Daniel Jones before Jones was benched, like around week 7 or something, that home game. I don't remember who it was against now. That was a really impressive rep by him. And he was held back a lot by Drew Aller, like on his film. We noted that it was really bad at times.
I think that was against Washington. That was in.
Was it? Yes, it was. Washington.
Yeah.
Week 7, maybe, or 6 or something like that. It was
early.
It was
week 9.
But was Jones benched in week 8 or was Jones benched in week 10?
Jones was benched after the Carolina game, right? He played in Germany, so that would have been week 10.
Okay.
And then the Giants came out against the Buccaneers after their bye week, and they were flat as hell
with DeVito. Yeah. Funny. Funny, I guess is one way to put it. So I think for me, if I'm forced to rank this, I'll go Cowboys 1. But I'm gonna take a leap. I'm gonna go Giants 2.
Let's go, baby.
And I'm gonna go Skins or the Commanders 3. Giants with 3 points, Commanders with 2. I'll put Eagles last because I think again Goddard's older. He's been hurt a lot. They haven't invested at all outside of Goddard, and in addition,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and he might be a cap casualty as well.
Yeah, I think you actually bring up excellent points, and I'd probably re-rank this right now, especially from the sense that the Philadelphia Eagles are a team where it's like Dallas Goedert, he's a good player, but like he thrives because they have AJ Brown and
he gets these free releases,
and Jalen Hurts, which is the linebackers. You know that some of them are playing contained shading, giving Goddard a little bit more space. I'm not trying to take anything away from Goddard, but reality, he has that luxury that these other tight ends do not have. So I think that's a very good point, dude. Yeah.
All right, so I like that. So we're moving on to a big one for us that we've always put very high in our rankings as of importance level, and it's offensive tackle. Where are we at offensive tackle?
Offensive tackle. So Eagles get 4 points again. It's difficult when they have Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. It's really hard to go up against that. Giants get 3 points though, baby. Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor. People could be like, hey, Andrew Thomas has been hurt the last 2 years. I'll be like, I know, but I'm hoping it doesn't happen again. So I'm giving them 3 points. Go fuck. No, I'm just joking. But 2 points for the Commanders and then 1 point for the much hated Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, the Commanders was a tough one because I almost ranked them over the Giants. They get Laremy Tunsil, and then they have Brandon Coleman, but they also have Josh Connerly Jr. waiting in the wings.
Right.
So I can look at it and be like, you could put the Commanders. That's a better 3 than what the Giants have. Maybe. Actually, I don't even know that though, dude, because I think I would take the Giants. Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor. I would take that over Laremy Tunsil, like healthy, obviously. Yeah. Laremy Tunsil and Brandon Coleman. And then you just have Connerly Jr. And the Giants at least brought in James Hudson III and Stone Forsythe for some veteran depth that they have. So I'm comfortable with having the Giants get 3 points. Cowboys, they're last because Tyler Guyton, he's still coming along. Terrence Steele's a respectable veteran, but I just think it lacks that type of star power that the other 3 teams clearly have at the offensive tackle position. Speaking of Stone Forsythe, I was walking down like 43rd or 46th Street in Manhattan a few days ago, and I see this gigantic dude who's 6'8" walking with somebody, and I'm just like, huh. And I turn around, I walk past him. I had to go around him because he was walking kind of slow, and I'm like one of the fastest walking people in New York City. People say, "Oh, everyone walks fast there." No, they don't. They really freaking do not. They like to take their time. But anyway, so I walk around.
Totally see personality type is like an insane speed walker that gets angry at people walking too slow.
Well, I don't care if you're walking slow, but if you're walking slow and you're oblivious, that's when
walk with a purpose, Nick Falato.
Yeah, of course. No, and then when someone walks past me, I'm like, damn, they're walking fast. And then there's a slight part of me that's also like, oh, what a dickhead. But then I'm like, that's what everyone probably thinks about me because I'm walking past everybody. So I'm a dickhead, apparently. Anyways,
no.
But I turned around and I looked and I saw it. And I was like, oh, it's Stone Forsythe. I didn't say anything because, he's with somebody and that's weird. Okay. but I was like, oh shit, Stone Forsythe. I'm like, you can't really blend in when you're 6'8", like 320, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to it. I'm comfortable with these. I think the Cowboys are clearly last, and they don't have a bad tackle pairing. And there's still a lot of upside with Tyler Guyton and Terrence Steele being that veteran. And you know, they can also mix and match their tackles. But like in general, I think I like this ranking, and I think it's pretty safe. What do you think about the 2 and the 3 though, with the Giants and the Giants and the Commanders?
Well, I'll get into the second. One quick story though. It's just funny you mentioned that. My friend Will, who you know, I'm going to be golfing with actually Saturday, which is going to be fun. Yes, he's a big. You guys probably know him listening to the podcast. He's a big Giants Twitter guy. He was 20. I forgot the actual handle. It's like 27 something. He's the way you know him is he was the anti Saquon Barkley guy for a while on Twitter.
The quintessential one, yes,
the quintessential anti Saquon Barkley guy. And he actually was walking in Manhattan and saw Joe Shane and Tim McDonald, and he stopped and said hi to Shane and McDonald. And, you know, he said there wasn't too much from it, but Shane just said, be very excited about what's coming in the future. Obviously, Shane's going to say that. What else is Shane going to say? Yeah. But it would be cool to meet Joe Shane. I wish I could have met Joe Shane. Like, I don't know what, and I have to think about this ahead of time, Nick. I would have wanted to ask a nice pointed question, not anything too crazy to put him in a bad spot, but I would have wanted to go a little deeper than that. But I do respect it, and it is probably cool to meet him. And he's always been a big fan of Shane, so because he's all like salary cap guy, so he like wants the cap to always be clean, and he wants them to be like, you know, handling things from that standpoint, which I think Shane has actually done a really good job of cleaning up the Giants salary cap. I don't personally value it as highly as he does at all through the years. I think the salary cap is pretty much a joke for the most part, as the Eagles have made. And even that, by the way, the NFL is reviewing this. Have you seen that like NFL teams are like meeting to talk about like, are there too many loopholes in the cap? Like, what's going on here with the Eagles and Chiefs?
I think that should have happened like 5 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Before these teams were allowed to do this, like, I mean, the Eagles and Chiefs are making a mockery of the salary cap.
Whenever the Saints pulled all their chicanery, that's when I would have been like, dude, what are they doing? They're signing everybody. And then the Eagles were like, oh shit, we're going to do that
we
too.
Can do this too.
Now
like,
the Chiefs are getting creative with it. And it's just like, all right, we need to like settle this. Or maybe the other teams need to be a little bit more savvy. One of the two things needs.
It's kind of like student loan debt. Like if you have student loan debt and you just keep pushing it back until you die. Like I would just have like $500, like $1 million in debt by the time I die. What happened?
Right, then it will fall. Yeah, but then it will fall.
Oh, no, then it falls on your kids. You're right. That is. Yeah.
And then the interest just keeps building up and building up.
But if you're a GM, who cares if it falls on the next GM?
Yeah.
Like, gives a shit. But anyway, back to the rankings. It's interesting. I like looking at this position, offense tackle, just to see how far it's come in this division, like, and how far the Giants have come. I think your rankings are identical to mine, I want to say. So I'm having trouble with the 3 versus 2. I think 1 and 4 are definitely locked in. The Eagles and obviously Lane Johnson and Mailata are the number 1 there. And the Cowboys, while I'm okay and comfortable also putting them last, I will say they've proven over the years they just have good development skills with their offensive line. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're like the second best performing tackle group this year, just somehow, even though they're not big names. Though Guyton was a first-round pick and Steele's been solid. But with 3 versus 2, it's tough because I am going to be and will continue to be much higher on Marcus Bowe than his draft status, than the 5th round pick. I think he's going to be a very good player for the Giants at some point. Not the star offensive tackle, but like a Terrence Steele type level player for the Giants at some point. So because of that, I feel like the Giants are in a really much better position than they've been in. But to be fair, that is a 5th round pick, and I'm projecting there. And Illuminor is going to be a free agent after this year. So it's not, and Thomas has had a lot of injuries. So I think it's fair to probably consider the Commanders at 3, but I won't do it because Laremy Tunsil has also had his problems and his injuries, and there was some weird stuff that went on with him at Houston last year. Why else would they trade a tackle like that in CJ Stroud's prime? Something weird was going on there, I think, at least.
Dude, guess how many penalties Laremy Tunsil committed last year?
There you go.
So guess. It's
12?
More. It's a lot.
Really?
Yes.
Is he always a penalty guy?
Not really. No, he had 19 penalties last year, 12 the previous year, 11 the previous year, and then he was injured in 2021 and a little bit injured in 2020. But yeah, no, not really. I mean, like Tunsil, I've always respected Laremy Tunsil, and I've heard things about Laremy Tunsil that about Houston, but again, it's all like hearsay. I don't know what exactly is true, but I've heard that like just through the grapevine that maybe he didn't have a certain attitude that the Houston Texans wanted in the not that he's a malcontent or anything, but I think they wanted him maybe to be a little bit more assertive. And that's one of the reasons why they were willing to part ways with one of the best. And I'm kind of speaking, I don't want to say I'm speaking out of my ass. Like I heard this. I don't know how true any of it is though, of course, because I'm not in the freaking building. But that could be one reason why the Houston Texans were okay with shipping away one of the best tackles in the National Football League, who is still, I think he just turned 30. So he's still pretty young-ish.
Yeah, not as young as Thomas, but definitely in that tier of like not over the hill and tackles play for a while. It's an interesting debate because I loved Connerly in the draft, and that's a lot of projection as well. And I do kind of still feel like Jaden Daniels makes that offensive line look a lot better than it is in Washington, by a lot better than it is. And
but that was last year's line.
Yeah, that was last year's line before they got Tunsil and Connerly. So it's a close one for me. I'm going to settle with your exact same rankings. Eagles 4, Giants 3 points, Commanders 2, and Cowboys 1. Let's do the interior offensive line and get to your final thoughts.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, interior offensive line, Eagles take another 4 points. That is almost a sweep of 4 points for the Philadelphia Eagles. I absolutely hate that.
Good.
But again, yeah, exactly. When you have Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and Tyler Steele, all young players, I think 2 of them are on the rookie contracts. I think Dickerson has been extended, and they also traded for former first-round pick. And I'm not really weighing into this much, but Kenyon Green.
No, they'll do it. Stoutland will do it.
And Stoutland will do it. And a lot of this is because of Stoutland too, but I had to give them 4, right? Like who else is there? The Dallas Cowboys, I really like theirs as well. I mean, they drafted Tyler Booker this year. They have Tyler Smith from a couple years ago, and then Cooper Beebe, who we loved coming out of Kansas State. So that's an easy 3. And then it comes down to the Giants and Washington. And this was tough. I had to go back and forth. I ended up going with the Giants with 2 points and Washington with 1. A lot of that is contingent on Sam Cosmi's injury, because Sam Cosmi, I don't know when he's going to be back. He tore his ACL in the playoffs, right? I think it was in the playoffs. He tore his ACL. He might not be back for training camp or even the early part of the season. If Cosmi was 100% healthy, I may have considered Cosmi or I may have considered the Giants as a 1-pointer here, but because of that injury, you're looking at Nick Allegretti, you're looking at Tyler Biotish, you're looking at Andrew Wiley. I would say competent-ish veterans, not a terrible group. Like we've seen a lot worse with the New York Giants in recent history, but I think I would take John Runyon, Greg Van Roten, John Michael Schmitz, Aaron Stinney, Evan Neal. If you want to throw Marcus Bowe in there, depending, I think he's getting tried out as a tackle, but he could. I had him as a tackle for this exercise, but I think I would lean in that direction. So that's what I ended up doing.
This is a interesting one. I think it's another good example of like the unsigned, how it's like tough for us to break this down fully, because the Cowboys and the Eagles are so much better on the interior offensive line than anyone else in this division. Yes, the Eagles are definitely better than the Cowboys, but Cowboys have a case with Tyler Smith, Beebe, and Booker. But those 2 interior offensive lines are light years, and I mean light years ahead of what we just talked about, what you just mentioned with Washington and the Giants. So I want to start by saying that. So you're only going to get a 1-point difference from the Cowboys to go from 3 to whoever we're giving the 2 points to, and in this case for you, it's the Giants. But it really should be a bigger gap, and we both are recognizing that. With that said, I think you perfectly broke that down. If Cosmi was fully healthy, it's the Commanders. Without Cosmi fully healthy, I am going to go with the Giants as well. Again, I think a lot of what happened on the Commanders offensive line last year was just Jaden Daniels being really good. And not just Jaden, like I want to give the credit to Cliff Kingsbury as well. But it was just really hard as a defense to pressure him, to play him, like to scheme against him. That's the thing. Like, you have to be really aware of where your pass rushers, or how your pass rushers are planning to attack the quarterback and their path of attack to the quarterback. Because if not, he's just going to run. And that makes the job of an offensive lineman so much easier. And in the run game, it's kind of similar. It's like you have to account for Jaden on every single run play, which again makes the job of an offensive line so much easier. And that's just not the case for any team in this division. So I think that kind of props them up a little bit more than they should be individually as offensive linemen. So I'll go the same rankings as you, 4, 3, 2, 1 with the Giants 2 and Commanders 1. So let's get to your final thoughts and where the Giants landed points wise.
Oh yes. Dun, dun, dun. For all the math wizards out there, it was the Philadelphia Eagles, 23 points. Yes. They were 1 away from a clean sweep. And then it was the New York Giants, which obviously means the Giants are going to be better than the Cowboys and Commanders, right? Like obviously they had 13 points, the New York Giants, and the Cowboys and the Commanders both had 12 points. So that's how the offense shook out here. And a lot of people are like, oh God, the Giants, they have a better roster. Oh, no, that's not necessarily what I'm saying, but on this very, very well done, completely honest and amazing analysis right here, the New York Giants end up taking 13 points over the Cowboys and Commanders at 12.
Yeah, I think it's clear what you're doing here and what this is evaluating, Nick, but I just want to kind of reiterate it. It's more of like what roster is kind of the most well-rounded, right? Because like we would never, if we weighted this thing on a graded scale, we would never give 4 points to quarterback and 4 points to tight end.
Of course, but it's also like this isn't like the best representation of how to grade someone's roster, right? Because the difference between 2 points is so massive, yet it could just, I have to make a decision between the Commanders and the Giants, even though they're both the same. And I have to make that decision. And then that's 2 points. And it's like, oh, wow, that's such a big difference. No, of course, this is like a silly, fun little exercise that is meant to spark conversation and allow rival NFC East teams to create content off of them. That's what this is all about.
Yes. As that one Cowboys blogger called Nick, delusional Giants.
Delusion. He didn't use my name, though. I would like to be like delusional Nick Falato. Freaking Italian with a mustache. This guy sucks. I would have appreciated that.
I did like that you retweeted his article.
I did retweet the article. Yeah, it's the first thing I did when I saw it. I was like, "Oh, this is hilarious."
I love it. Leaning into it.
My editor slid into the DMs and was like, "Oh man, somebody's writing articles about you." I was like,
"Oh, really?"
Yeah,
that's how you found out. That's so funny.
Yeah, why else would I? It's not like I'm perusing through the Dallas
Cowboys blogs.
No, yeah. Well, those listeners would have probably like sent it to me if they ever. But the guy didn't use my name, so they wouldn't even know.
Right. Yeah. All right. That's all we have on the Big Blue Banter podcast. We're going to do this for the defense very soon, probably tomorrow. I don't know when you're going to hear this. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking with us in this dry time. I mean, it is deadly dry from the content standpoint. So thank you. Yeah, I knew you'd find something there.
Are you used to this, Dan? Is that
appreciate anybody who's still who's with us during this time. Please hit the like button. Please write a comment in here. We would like that. We would appreciate that. Actually, we're pretty happy and content with, we're getting decent views even in this dry time. I think the last couple videos in the 4 or 5K range, but let's try to get it up there. And maybe, this is the thing with this type of dry content time of year. This is the type of video where if you hit the like button and you comment, it could pop on somebody's algorithm that's an Eagles fan or a Cowboys fan or a Commanders fan, and that could help it take off. So if you want to help us grow, do that. This is a new background for me today, by the way, a new green screen. Hopefully those who know what this is. And if you do know what it is, kudos to you. You're an excellent music fan and you understand.
I knew.
Nick actually knew, which is freaking awesome. So I don't even think he really liked. Do you like this band?
I mean, I like appreciate him. It's not a band that I listen to. Them, my father listened. Listens like I think he likes them. But like, it's not a band I grew up like listening to or anything like that. It's there was a couple songs. Is it the band that did Jessica? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I ended up on like Guitar Hero and stuff like that. And I was like, oh man, it's like good tunes, but it's not like something I put on.
Yeah, it's jammy. I will say this album cover and this album is the
Allman Brothers, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Just for those people listening on the podcast, like, what band are they talking about?
My second favorite band of all time. It used to be my favorite, but unfortunately, or not unfortunately, another band has overtaken them. Just have more depth, and that's the Grateful Dead. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, they were around longer and have more depth. But this album, Live at the Fillmore East, that's what the album cover is. And this is my hot take to end the show. This is the single best guitar ever recorded on a live album, and the single best guitar ever played as Dwayne and Dickie just traded off licks. And it was just some of the most phenomenal. The whipping post on this, the Hotlanta, the Elizabeth Reed, just absolute tearing up, shredding of guitar. I don't even understand how they played it as fast as they played it. And not just as fast, like, it was so consistent. Like, they weren't missing. It was unbelievable. It was like watching, in my mind, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady square off as Dickie and Dwayne traded off during this album. You should listen to it, everyone. If you like guitar, this is the quintessential album for guitar play, in my opinion. Live at the Fillmore East, Allman Brothers. Anyway, this is not a music podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.